This is what I wanted because I knew that the character was so iconic.
Yes.
And it was like, if anything goes wrong, I'll be like, that was my best. Sorry, I did everything I could. You know, my best wasn't good enough, but that was my best. And I could walk away with that. That was my mentality.
What's up, guys? Today's guest is a professional suit actor, most notably known for being the performance artist for Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. Please welcome to the JAMCast, Dmitrious Bistrevsky.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How was the pronunciation? Too far off?
No, it was good.
All right.
You nailed it.
It's always nerve-wracking when the person's like right in front of you and you're like, oh man, this is a difficult name. So thanks for coming through, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And everyone butchers my name, so you're like the only person who hasn't.
I literally was at home like reading it over and over and over again, and then I was like, should I ask him to send me an audio note? And I'm like, I'll just ask him in person. We'll get it done, man. But thanks for coming through, man. It's been an honor to have you on here, obviously because of a lot of the recent press regarding Obi-Wan Kenobi. But you've always been just like a fixture of Jam here. Like always see you out here training so hardcore. A man of many talents, which I'm sure we'll get into over time.
Thank you. Yeah, Jam is my temple.
We appreciate
I'm
it.
here like every day. This is my spot.
Dude, you're one of the fixtures, you know. There are a few people that they're literally like fixtures of Jam. Like you, Armand is always here, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a few select people where I like when I don't see them, I'm like, I wonder if they're okay, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's if you don't see me, I'm working.
That's
so I'll be gone for
too.
a long time. I'll be gone for like 8 months, and I come back and I'm here every day for like 6 months. People get used to me and I disappear again.
Then you're gone again. Yeah, and work is always the best problem to miss training.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see this like group of community that we have of local people. One that like got into the mix, I think you know too, like Peter Sidarso.
Yeah.
Like never ever trained, and then randomly we start training him for a role. And then I see this guy here like every day, just like dancing by himself out here on the floors. It's so cool.
Peter's grinding.
I know, right?
Yeah.
He's on the training grind. It's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's inspiring.
Yeah, it's very cool to see, man. So obviously there's so much to talk about with all the things you've accomplished in your life, but obviously I feel like the one thing that's getting a lot of press right now is the most recent series, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
You got to be, is it one of 3 people that are technically in the suit, I guess?
Yeah, there's 3 of us.
Okay.
There's Hayden Christensen, there's myself, Dmitrious Bistrevsky, and there's Tom O'Connell.
And Tom does the fight scenes?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the Stunt Vader.
Okay. And then what exactly is your title? Because I know, is it like performance artist?
I am the Darth Vader performance artist. I'm the suit actor.
And so what does that entail, I guess?
So I do all the acting scenes.
Oh, crazy.
If the helmet's on, then it's me.
Okay, wow, that's wild. And so with that involved, like, obviously it's such an iconic role. How much training and thought process went into leading up to, I guess, portraying such an iconic person? You know?
So I'm going to start off and saying when I got this role, I was excited for like 17 minutes. And then I got hit with the realization of what I had just booked.
The pressure, yeah.
The pressure. And it wasn't just a little pressure. It was like, oh my God, if I mess this up,
100%.
no one will ever forgive me. Because this is such an important one. This is the one that connects the prequels with the originals.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and this is like Star Wars history.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I booked it in January of that year that we were filming.
Okay.
And I didn't start filming, I think, till June. And I started training from January to June.
No way.
So I froze for like 2 weeks. Like I didn't know how to approach the character. I watched all the movies, I studied the lore, and then I felt that I was being a character of the character. I was like cosplaying. I was like, it has to be real. It has to be real. So I met up with one of my good friends he's one of the producers of Legion M. Okay. He's like a heavy cosplayer, super Star Wars fan, and he's like a Darth Vader expert. And I was just like, hey, I'm doing this fan film where I'm playing Darth Vader.
Fan film,
yeah. And I'm like,
NDAs.
I'm getting kind of stuck with how to start the approach for my character. And he's like, Dmitrious, I'm going to stop you right there. This is your character. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to give you any advice. I don't want to influence it anyway.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, ooh. And he's like, but I will tell you my experience of watching the original Star Wars and what it meant to me as a child and what it meant culturally and what a phenomenon it was. And I was like, okay, yeah. And that gave me context to understand what it was and what it meant for people.
Totally.
And then from there, I was just like, okay, if I mess this up, I will never forgive myself. So like the only thing I could do is I have like this circus grit where I'm like, I could just go 10x all the time. And I was like, I'm going to just hit this as hard as possibly. And I just went 10 hours a day.
No way.
From the start to the end. And I just did everything I could possibly think of. So I started studying Anakin, specifically Anakin, for a month. I watched all the prequels. I did all the lore. studied the backstory, and then I found all the parallels between myself and him as like a circus artist and as a Jedi. Because we had similar training stories, similar hardships. I grew up as an immigrant, like a poor immigrant. He was a slave.
Yes.
You know, so I saw these parallels, and once I understood Anakin, then I understood the betrayal, the fall, and then the transition into Darth Vader.
Totally.
So while I was doing this, I was also walking 3 hours a day. Deborah Chow had a very specific homework assignment, which was the walk. That was like the most important thing during the audition. Was like, we have David Prowse, and then we have what's been animated in the video games and in the animated series. And when they animated it, they updated him. He became more graceful and more floaty, but David Prowse had like this aggression and these wide strides and very iconic walk.
Yeah.
And we wanted to create a fusion of the two.
Okay.
So that was my job.
Crazy.
But I had a knee injury beforehand. It was a reoccurring knee injury.
Was that from your dislocation?
Yeah. So I had dislocated it 4 times.
Wow.
You know, like every year I would dislocate it.
Yeah.
And then because of that, my hip was compensating. Yep. So when we had our camera test, I got a few notes, very subtle notes about swaying, about having swagger in the walk. And I tried to correct it, and I realized it was my hip.
Wow.
And it wasn't something I could just like fix with a note.
Yeah.
So then I requested a movement coach, and I trained with a movement coach for 5 months, but I retrained my hip, and I retrained my entire walk and fixed a tilt in my pelvis. And then I walked 3 hours a day.
No way.
To get it there.
I can understand the importance of like your gait changing, because I used to do a lot of mocap. And over the years, as my body got progressively more damaged and I had surgeries, the guys behind the screens would joke and be like, dude, your data is horrible. We have to clean it up all the time because your body's just misaligned. And I eventually was like, dude, I'm going to walk away. I feel bad making you guys clean up my data. So I can understand an iconic walk, especially since in this role, you're technically not delivering a lot of dialogue. You have to tell the story through your movements and your mannerisms and stuff like that. That's just absolutely crazy. And so like during the course of all this training, I guess, what's the one thing you could take away regarding the walk that like makes it so, I guess, perfect? Is it just like the way you have to keep your head still? Is it like the stride length?
It's everything. I mean, I worked with a movement coach, Olga Sokolova.
Yes.
And it was very, very particular. Like she comes from the dance world. She has an eye for movement and for subtlety. So basically, it was similar to ballet training. There was a lot of pulling the neck, lengthening the neck, learning how to close the rib cage, learning how to actively tilt the pelvis while sinking in and trying to glide instead of stepping, learning to glide with my walk. So it was like a lot of like balancing books on your head, gliding across the room. And then we had to have different tempos, different moods, different intensities, different emotions. What does a sad walk look like? What does an angry walk look like? But it all has to be perfect because the character is a master and he is perfection.
Yes.
Right. That was the hardest part. Was that and then she was on set with me, giving me notes as well in real time. We had like a hand language, so she'd be in my peripheral doing.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, okay, while I'm doing the scenes. But it was like if my head did this, I'd get a note.
Yeah, of course.
If I did this, I'd get a note. You know, so it was if my hip swayed like an inch, and she was looking at the screen and be like, no, again. This. So I would get like 40 notes a take.
And then you have to try to put it in.
And I have to put it together because I get the notes from the director, the emotional notes of the story. Yeah. I'd get the physical notes from Olga.
Okay.
And they were all like detailed, like, you know, on your 5th step, right here, your hip swayed. And we're doing long scenes. These scenes like a minute and a half, 2-3 minutes. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, 5th step. Okay, fix that. Okay, here my head tilted. Okay, my helmet shook a millimeter. Like these are the notes. But we also, this is what I wanted because I knew that the character was so iconic.
Yes.
And it was like, if anything goes wrong, I'll be like, that was my best. Sorry, I did everything I could. You know, my best wasn't good enough, but that was my best. And I could walk away with that. That was my mentality.
And so after so many, like, I guess, months of walking like that, did you find yourself changing the way you normally walked outside in normal life?
Yeah.
Okay.
It changed the way I walk. I now have like a model walk. I'm good for the runway.
That's hilarious. And so I got to ask, like, what is the suit like?
The suit is one of the, like I do a lot of suit acting. The suit is one of the hardest suits I've ever worn.
I was going to ask, because I've done suit work too, and people don't realize how difficult it is. I refuse to do it now. Like,
really?
I refuse to do prosthetics, and I refuse to do suit work because I know how difficult it is. So what made it so difficult? Is it the weight? Is it the breathability? Is it the restrictions?
Everything.
Okay.
But it was necessary for the character.
Yes.
It was absolutely 100% necessary, and in the lore, the suit is intentionally uncomfortable.
Oh, okay.
Because it keeps him in an anger state, and the pain and the anger keeps him there, so you go deeper in the dark side. So he had like pins that would go into his brain,
Yes.
and stuff like that would create discomfort.
Okay.
So that was in the back of my mind while I was doing the suit. I was like, this is necessary. This is part of the character. No, I think it had 8 layers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then we also wore muscle suits.
Okay.
Tom and I wore muscle suits. I'm pretty sure Hayden didn't because he was like swole, like he came jacked on set. Yeah, so that was part of it. The restriction,
of course,
like really, and I'm really flexible, so I lost like 65% of my range of motion.
Wow, just from being stuck and rigid.
Like your arm doesn't move past here, your arm doesn't move past here, your head doesn't move past here. So you're stuck in these restrictions, and that's what creates the character.
Yes.
It doesn't breathe that well. Same thing, the heat, as you know, the heat becomes unbearable. There was a couple times where I almost fainted.
Yes.
You know,
I was going to ask, they always tell, whenever I do suits, they're like, we put a fan inside. I'm like, this fan is useless. Did they have fans inside?
I had a crew.
Okay.
I had a 4-person like wardrobe team that would fan me in between every take, every free moment. I had fans blowing on me.
Okay.
Yeah. There was I think when we were working with fire, there was one moment where I was like, oh, I don't know, I think I'm going to faint.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, I had such a great team. They're like, stop. And they gave me like a break. I'm like, okay, good.
I know one of the other things from doing suit work that's always difficult is what was the visibility like in the helmet?
Oh my God.
'Cause that's always the most challenging thing people don't realize.
Yeah.
It's like the visibility in a lot of these masks and helmets it's laughable. It's like comedic when they expect you to do things in them, you know.
That's why I was blown away with Tom doing the fighting, because literally we were blind.
Wow.
Yeah, we were like, part of my movement training was I was training stuff blindfolded, working on sense memory. So I would do all the things, remembering choreography and stuff blindfolded, prepping for the helmet because I knew how bad the visibility was.
Okay.
It's like you're a tunnel here, you have no peripheral.
Okay.
And because the character can't look at the floor or do anything, it's always here, I only see far away in front of me.
Whoa.
So if you were standing next to me, I wouldn't see you.
Yeah, not at all.
I wouldn't see you at all. And I'm not even allowed to see you.
Yes.
You know, so I have to be up here. And then they were tinted like a really weird yellowish color.
Okay.
So it would take out any kind of light, would distort everything and throw off your depth perception. Yeah.
No way.
So there was times when we were doing a scene, the iconic street scene where we're walking.
Okay.
There was a moment where I'm supposed to force push Bruce through a window or through into the door. And he's like, when you see him coming, Randy was like, when you see him coming, force push him. I'm like, I don't see him.
I can't see
I
that
literally
to the
do
side.
not see him.
I need a cue, guys.
Yeah. Okay. And then there was a cue. And then I also couldn't hear.
No way.
Because it's a dome. So you really only hear your own breath.
It's just echoing.
It's just the Darth Vader. It's literally like you hear. And that drowns out everything else. And everyone else is just like.
Yeah. That is wild, man. And so, like, how long, I guess, from start to finish, from prep to, I guess, last day on set, how long was that project?
For me, it was 9 months, I believe.
Okay.
9 months. 3 months of filming and then like 6 months of intense prep.
Wow.
And then the crazy thing was, it's because I went so far into character, like I was meditating into rage. I was microdosing on mushrooms so I could feel my emotions deeper. Wow. I was chain smoking cigars to jack up my lungs. And then I would sit with a nebulizer and meditate while fuming, like Obi-Wan did this.
Crazy.
You know, studied all the lore. I studied tyrants and history and conquerors. I was like in this manic headspace, Sith headspace for almost a year.
Yeah.
You know, so when we finished filming, I couldn't shake the character. And that was the first time it had happened to me. And I've read other actors going through this, but it was the first time that I had experienced it, and it was a real thing.
Crazy.
Where like, I was like borderline suicidal when we finished filming.
No way.
I was in such a dark place, but because also halfway through I started channeling the character, which is also something I've heard other people say, but I'd never experienced it. But there was a moment where I stopped acting and just the emotions came out, and I felt everything the character felt. Which was crazy because the character feels a lot.
Yeah, totally.
And it was like it was a lot more pain than I had ever experienced and ever thought that I would experience. So when we finished, and me as the character, surprise, spoiler alert, I feel defeated as the character. I felt defeated as a person after we finished filming. And I couldn't shake that, and then I had this need to prove myself, but I also had this aggression and less patience than I normally have. So I just wanted to snap at everyone and fight everyone, and that was my mentality. But I have the self-control to not let it take over me, but I felt that struggle in me where I was like, I gotta get away from everything So I went on like a 3-month spirit journey to like flesh out the character.
I was gonna say that's so opposite of your normal temperament and the way you hold yourself normally. So that's crazy. And I gotta ask, like, finally seeing the finished product, so to speak, like, how did you feel?
I haven't watched it yet.
You haven't?
I haven't watched it yet.
Wow.
I was waiting.
I'm so curious about that.
Because it was so triggering. Like, I was in such a dark place, and it took me like close to 4 months to shake the character.
Yeah.
So much to the fact that when we got to reshoots, I didn't want to do the reshoots.
Wow.
I asked if Tom
could do it.
The Stunt Vader could do it. I was like, can he just do it? Like, no, we need you, because I really did not want to go back in that dark place, because it was like tearing me apart. It literally was. It was like being bipolar and just feeling Darth Vader like clawing out and trying to escape out of me, and I didn't want that, and I was afraid of losing control, because I'm also very strong and I move surprisingly fast, and I shouldn't be fighting everybody that I see.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
You know, I just wanted to backhand everyone. So when we got to reshoots the first day, like, we had our fitting again. And immediately I put on the suit, and I felt everything come back, and I'm like fighting it just for the suit test. And it came back, and then I was like, "Ooh, okay, we have our reshoots in like 3 days." I'm like, I don't want to put the suit back on, because now it's like I'd spent so much time that it's ingrained in me. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I put on the suit, and I feel everything come back, and I feel the storm, and the rage comes off, and I'm just getting pissed and more pissed, and it's like fuming inside of me. And then there's this moment where it's like almost peaking. And then I hear my own voice, and it says, "I'm a monster." But it wasn't the character, it was me.
It was you, yeah.
It was me. And then I smiled, and I liked it. And then it went, and then just became silent.
Crazy.
And then I think that's when I became the character. That's when I found the character. It was already after we had finished filming, after we had done everything. In the reshoots, when I finally made peace with him, and we weren't fighting, then I could call him and push him away when I needed to. So we like became friends.
So will you ever watch it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was waiting. I was going to go to Japan and do a contract.
Okay.
A circus contract.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then last minute, I decided not to go just recently.
Okay.
So I was going to watch it with my cast, and now I don't know. I'm going to, at some point, I'm going to watch it.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah. But I've heard amazing reviews about it, and I've just seen little clips and stuff. I'm happy with my work. I'm really proud of my work.
Okay, cool. $1 million question. With such an iconic role and everything that went into it, would you do it again?
I think if the circumstances were right.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Just because of how much positive feedback I've gotten from the fans who've reached out.
Yeah.
And people just saying that I did it right.
Okay.
And that felt good, because I was so manic in the process.
Yeah.
And I went so hard in the prep that I was just like, I'm just going to do my best.
Crazy.
And people liked it. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet. No, I haven't.
We're
I've
in
been
the same
waiting to binge it all at once. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm one of those that like binges a whole series.
Yeah,
and
me
then
too.
I wait and then I start a new series. So that's on the list, because obviously want to support you, want to support Ross, Constam, and all the other homies on it. So it's crazy to see there's so many reboots. I know there's another Star Wars show in town starting up right now that I have buddies that are about to start up with George Cottle running it and stuff. And it's just crazy to see like this revamp of the franchise, I guess, in modern day times. So kind of cool that our generation will get the chance, I guess, to be a part of history. Because growing up, it's just a show you watch. You're like, oh, that would have been cool to work on. And it's like, now we finally get the chance. So.
Well, the crazy thing is, when I left Washington to move to LA, at the time I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was here. I was like, I'm going to pursue stunts and acting maybe, and kind of see how it goes. I told people that I was going to play Darth Vader.
No way.
I'm like, I'm 6'7", I'm perfect.
Yeah.
If there's ever Darth Vader, I'm going to play Darth Vader.
Wow.
So when I heard through the grapevine that they were going to be auditioning for Darth Vader, I was like, it's me.
Crazy.
That's me.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I've heard other people talk about things like that where they talk it into existence, and years later it eventually happens. That's a role that's pretty daunting, though, and so I'm glad you got the chance to portray it and feel actually very good about it. I've had like chances to audition to like play Bruce Lee in roles, and I'm like, I actually don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to play him. That's way too much pressure, and I don't want to open myself up to judgment from the outside community, because obviously people have such a strong opinion about him and stuff. So I give you a lot of credit and props for taking on such an iconic figure within, you know, the cinematic world. So
I mean, I didn't understand the pressure until I had booked it. When I had the role, it's just like, Darth Vader, awesome. And I'm just focusing on the audition, and everything's focused on the audition. Get the part. Yeah. And then I got the part, and I'm like, you know, and then I was just like, oh, wait.
Yes.
Yeah. It was a lot of pressure. I was like, but all that helped with the headspace of the character, but I was in such a manic headspace for a year.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's so wild. And so obviously, like we discussed, like you're a suit actor. As far as I've ever seen you too, you're for lack of a better term, you're a movement artist in my mind. I guess you would call yourself would you call yourself a circus performer or?
I call myself a circus artist.
Okay.
Now, because I don't really perform as much in the circus, but I still train and I still dive deeper into movement, into theory, into understanding my body.
And so how did this whole journey with movement start?
It started off when I was 21.
It's relatively late. To be honest with
super
you.
late,
Yeah.
super late. My younger brother taught me how to do a really terrible backflip into the water off a duck.
Okay.
Like he's like, just stand on the edge, throw your head back really hard, jump really hard, and I obviously didn't even rotate all the way through.
Yeah, of course.
But it's water, so even if my waist touched, I was like, I landed a backflip.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and that blew my mind. You know, I was 6'6" at the time, and I was like, I had never done anything crazy.
Okay.
And I was like, I could do anything. So I went to a gymnastics gym, and I asked if I could rent their gym because I wasn't comfortable training around people. So I was like, if I train by myself, no one will judge me.
Yes.
And at the time, I had a janitorial company, so I worked in the nights and in the mornings, but I had my whole day free.
Okay.
And at that time that I asked to rent the gym, the owner of this gym, who owned a few gyms, who lived in Seattle but happened to be in Spokane, he was in the bathroom and he heard me talking. And he's like, what was his name, Dmitrious? He must be some kind of Russian gymnast. He's like, call him and give him a job to teach the boys team.
Hilarious. You're like, I'm a novice.
So they call me and they offer me a position to teach the boys team. And I was like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like anything about gymnastics, anything about movement. I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay. Well, we have these like cattle call interviews for people who want to coach. Would you want to jump in, like see if you'd like to coach? Because we're looking for new coaches. And I was like, I'm actually looking for a hobby right now. I'm looking for something to fill my day. All my friends are working or at school.
Yeah.
So I jumped in and I loved it. I loved it so much. And then from there, I did clinics and I shadowed coaches and I got better and I taught higher levels.
Okay.
And then eventually I felt like a hypocrite, so I started teaching myself.
Okay.
So whatever I made my kids do, my 1-2 kids, handstand forward rolls, cartwheels, everything, I did the same lesson plan at night by myself.
Okay.
But I would do it 6 days a week. So within like a year and a half, I got to level 6 in gymnastics.
Nice.
Yeah, self-taught, knowing the information, but filming myself. And then when I was learning to flip, there was no one who could spot me. So it was a lot of like, okay, today's the day that I land a backflip. And I go and I land on my neck. I'm like, oh, okay, commit, tuck tighter, jump higher.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that, like that mental hurdle of learning new tricks.
Okay.
So once I got there, I got into breakdancing and I loved it. And then I started doing theater, and then I moved to LA because I thought breakdancing and theater was stunts. And then I moved to LA and I found Circus.
Crazy.
And then I just went real deep into Circus because I loved it, as well as doing a little bit of stunts while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then one of my mentors is Doug Jones,
Okay.
the suit actor, and he kind of told me that I should get into suit acting. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I started focusing more on that, more on prosthetics and more on suit acting.
Wow, so wild. And so obviously, like, let's just like state the obvious. You're relatively tall for the average circus artist, tumbler, I guess just in general, breakdancer especially. Has that been a hindrance, or have you been able to utilize it as a strength in other ways? Like, do you find it more difficult?
So because I trained with B-boys, they didn't know that it was harder for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, just do it. Just do it,
man. Yeah,
just do it.
Of course, yeah.
And we're training on tiled floor, and I just didn't know that it was hard. I mean, I knew that it was harder for me, and everything was hard for me. But it was when I became good, and people came up to me like, "Hey, man, that must be really hard." I'm like, "Yeah, it is, but isn't everything hard?"
Yeah.
So it was that thing where people believed in me because they didn't know better.
Yes.
And I believed in me because I didn't know better, and because there were no limitations. When you train with like a coach or something, they're gonna be like, well, you're gonna plateau after a certain point. You're not gonna be able to tumble this. I had none of that.
Okay.
I was self-taught, so I was just like, I'm always getting better. And the B-boys were like, yeah, keep going. And that's what it was, yeah.
And I think I saw a post that basically, I don't want to misquote it here, but basically said that like breakdancing was kind of like your introduction to like breaking down walls, I guess, as far as like realizing the diversity that exists out there in so many ways and stuff like that. How did you stumble upon breakdancing in general, I guess, you know what I'm saying? Especially in Seattle, and like how long were you breakdancing for?
So I was teaching gymnastics, and one of the other coaches was a B-boy.
Makes sense, okay.
Yeah, and he was going to So You Think You Could Dance to audition.
Nice.
And at the time, I was doing local acting auditions. I wasn't good, but I had walked out of an audition once because I chickened out.
Wow.
And it's the worst feeling in the world.
Oh, yeah.
It's the worst feeling in the world because I showed up, and I saw everyone who looked like me, and there was 100 people, and I was like, oh no, I'm not good enough. And I went back in my car and I sat there, and then I drove home, and that was the most terrible feeling ever.
Crazy.
And then afterwards, I made a promise to myself that I would never walk out of any audition.
Okay.
No matter what, even if I'm not the fit for it. I even sought out auditions that weren't for me. 5'2" Asian ninja.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah. Show up there and just do my best, so that I wouldn't be afraid of it, because I don't like being afraid of anything.
Okay.
So he was like, I'm going to see Think You Dance. You want to go? I was like, I don't b-boy. I don't dance.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll teach you, man. It's like 3 months away. We'll train. We'll be good at it. We'll do it together. I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then nothing happened. We didn't practice. We didn't talk about it again.
Okay.
Still coaching gymnastics. And then 3 weeks before the audition, he's like, okay, so we're still going. I was like, no. you didn't teach me anything. I don't want to make a fool out of myself. Yeah. I'm like, I just want to audition because I don't want to be afraid. But I don't want the clout of being on TV and being bad. That's not me.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'll teach you. So for 3 weeks, we went really hard. And I was as good as you could be for 3 weeks.
Wow.
Combined with my like little gymnastics training.
Okay.
And I went there and I was confident, because I was like, yeah, I'm tall, and they're going to put that into consideration. And then I bombed. Bombed so bad.
Wow.
And then
solo audition bomb or?
Solo audition bomb,
okay.
yeah. And I thought that I was doing good because I was passing through the rounds.
Yeah.
But I was passing through the rounds because I was bad.
No way.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. They wanted the footage.
Yeah,
they wanted
the footage. Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, first cut. I made it through the first cut. That's crazy. That guy's doing air flares, and I'm still here. That's bonkers. Getting through. And then the judges just tear me apart.
Wow.
And it hurt. It hurt really bad. So I came back to Washington and I had this fire because one of the judges said that she thought I would never be good. It didn't show it on TV. She said, I thought you would never be good. I think you'll never be good, but I encourage you to keep going.
Wow.
And that hurt, because I was always in the back of my mind, I think you'll never be good. And I was like, I'll show you. I can do what I want. That kind of mentality. So I had something to prove. So I trained hard for like 3 months. We formed a crew. So my other friend got cut also. And we formed a crew and we started dancing every night. Okay. And then another person joined our crew, and then another person joined our crew, and then we became one of the rival crews in our city in Spokane. Wow. So there was Wild Styles, Tangled Roots, and then we were Paper Cutout crew. Okay. And then we got better, and we were training 6 days a week, like 2-3 hours a day. We were like hardcore. So we were the most hardcore crew. So we weren't the best, but we were always improving. Yeah. And then I started kind of liking it. The anger was getting worse, but I was getting better. So I was starting to enjoy it, and then it aired on TV. No way. And that was worse than anything. No way. Because suddenly people knew who I was, and I didn't even know that it aired. And I have a janitorial company, I'm coaching gymnastics, I'm going to school, and I go into my accounting class, and my teacher puts it on the big screen. No way. And I was just like, oh my God. And everyone knows. And then people would come up to me, man, it's so funny how you were like bad and stuff. And I was just like, it's not that funny.
It's not funny.
It hurts. So then I started training even harder, because I was like, I'm going to go back to So You Think You Dance. I'm going to show them that I could actually do it. Okay. And then I started pushing myself, same thing, like 3 hours a day for a while. It was like a year, maybe a year and a half, until all the anger burned out. And then I realized that I loved it and that I didn't care about them. Okay. I just cared about me and about the dance. I didn't have to prove it anymore. Okay. And then that's when, around the time when I started thinking about moving to Los Angeles. But at that time I already got windmills. I could do maybe like 5 ugly flares, one good flare and 4 ugly ones.
And then just holding yourself up, yeah.
I could do hand hops. So I was getting some moves. I didn't have any style. I couldn't hear music. I was just like good at movement. Yeah. So I wasn't necessarily dancing, but I was doing acrobatic stuff. Crazy. And then because of that, I fell into Circus in Los Angeles, and then I fell in love with Circus because it was everything that I loved about b-boying plus a career on top of it. Yeah. So I had like the crew feeling, I had the training. Yeah.
And so how old were you when you stumbled upon Circus?
23.
Wow, still relatively late.
Yeah.
For most things considered.
Yeah.
And so how do you throw yourself into that training? Did you go to like a formal school or academy, or did you just pick up learning stuff on the side with people?
So I got recruited at a Starbucks with my brother. We were both there just bantering in line, and a woman tapped me on the shoulder and said she was a director of a circus school, and they're looking for strong men to lift women, and asked me if I'd consider doing circus. And I had never heard of circus, and I was just like, cool. And she gave me her card. She's like, well, if you think about joining, give me a call. So I took the card and I put it in my wallet. And 3 weeks later, I was in Santa Monica and I met some girls there, and they were doing handstands. Okay. And I could do freezes at the time, like 30-second handstands, really bad form. Yeah. B-boy flavor. Yeah. And they're like, we were training with a hand balancing teacher who teaches Russian technique. Like, you should, if you were like serious about handstands, you should come take the class. I was like, I do need a teacher. And they're like, oh, I think I have a card. And she pulls out a card out of her purse, and it's the same card.
No way.
I pulled it out of my wallet, and I was like, it's fate.
Crazy.
So I called, and then I tried everything. I tried like trapeze, I tried rope, I tried clown, juggling, partner acrobatics, tumbling, contortion.
Yeah.
I was training everything. And then I found the things that I liked, and I trained there for about a year and a half. And then I auditioned for this big circus school in Canada called ENC.
Okay.
It's one of the best circus schools in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got into their preparatory program because I met one of the coaches who vouched for me. And when I went through the audition, same thing. I wasn't as good as everyone else.
Okay.
But I was okay because I trained in clown. I was okay at theater. I was okay at flexibility. And I moved really well for a big guy.
Okay.
So it was kind of obscure. And then when they did the analysis with other coaches, they all spoke Russian. And I could understand Russian, but my Russian wasn't that good at the time.
Totally.
And they just tore me apart in Russian. They were like, he is not good. He's a liability. He's going to hurt himself. His core is weak. And I'm like hearing everything. And they're talking right in front of me. I'm like, oh, man, they don't know that I understand.
Did I understand? Yeah.
And this one coach vouched for me. He's like, no, I will train him. He'll be my student. He's going to be good. And it was like that Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Anakin kind of thing where like, I'll train him. So that was that parallel. So I got into Mise à Niveau, the preparatory program.
Okay.
Had issues with my visa. Showed up to Canada. They didn't let me go to school.
No way.
But I sold all my stuff and forfeited my apartment. So now I'm in Canada, and I also don't have that much money. I only have enough money for about 2 months, and I was like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'm there just training, and when he found out that I wasn't in the school, he offered to train me for free, Rocky style.
Wow.
And it was like a master-apprentice kind of relationship.
Totally.
Where I'd meet him at like 6 a.m., I would train with him in the morning. He'd give me a list of exercises and things to do. I would do it for like 4 hours, meet him at lunch, and then he would teach me philosophy and about life and stuff. And he would only talk to me in Russian.
Wow.
And I understood like in between a kindergartner and first grade level.
Yeah.
So I only understood like 10% of what he was saying.
Totally.
And I was just like listening, and all these words were over my head. And the first day showed up, he's like, why don't you have a notebook? And I was like, oh.
Shit.
Writing, just scribbling, trying to translate from Russian to English and everything. Yeah, and I trained with him for 4 months. And I am everything I am because of him.
Okay.
He's like a legitimate circus master.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so he shaped my life. He's like one of those people that completely changed my lifeline and shaped my life. And because of him, I ended up auditioning for Cirque, and then I got into their preparatory program.
Nice.
And then when I came back here, I already knew what the elite level was like. So then I trained with my brother at LA Fitness for like 6 years.
Okay.
Going like 3 to 10 hours a day.
Wow.
Just knowing that's the level that it takes to be good.
And did your brother go through any formal training like you, or did you just come back with the knowledge you had and help him with his journey?
I brought him in with me to the circus school that we trained for a year and a half together. So we had about a year and a half of formal training.
Okay.
And then when we branched off, we just watched YouTube videos. I mean, it's that b-boy style. I mean, same with tricking. Like you have a video, and then you just practice until you get it. And eventually you start learn how to learn faster. You start figuring out your body, you understand progressions, and you break things down.
Yeah.
And then you reach a point where you could kind of learn anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You look at something, you're like, well, I don't know how to do that, but I could break down the progressions to figure out how to do it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And so what is the skills or skills that you find are your, I guess, favorites or the ones that you're the best at?
Oh, in circus?
Yes.
I'm really good at rollabola, which is Chinese by pipe balancing.
Okay.
So it's like an Indo board.
It's like an Indo board.
Yeah, Indo board.
A board on top of a cylindrical thing. Yeah.
But the cylinder is metal, and the board has no grooves or ridges. It just has a piece of tape so it doesn't slide off.
Okay.
So it's like 10 times harder than Indo board.
Wow.
So it's always a little like a slap in the face when people are like, oh, you do Indo board. And I'm like,
way harder.
Way harder.
Yeah,
way harder.
Yeah.
This is like 8 years of my life training. Indo board is like you pick it up and you're good to go in like 30 minutes.
Pretty much, yeah. The average person can Indo board in a day or so.
Yeah, and this is like hardcore training. So that's my main discipline. I like hand balancing.
Okay.
Handstands. Staff spinning.
Yes.
Something I got into recently. Same with sword spinning.
Okay.
I like tumbling. I like everything. I like all of it.
Okay.
I go through phases where I get burnt out with one, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of bored with staff right now, and then I'll switch completely to juggling or to something else.
Yeah, makes
sense. And then I
sense.
cycle through disciplines.
Okay. Crazy. And so you've obviously had the chance to get to a high level within all of these.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you start actually booking work and jobs utilizing these skill sets?
My first big job was I actually went on Broadway.
I saw that.
Yeah, I did the Broadway musical Pippin.
Okay.
And that was my first like big professional job.
Wow.
After training maybe for like 3 years of like 10 hours a day.
And what was your role?
I was one of the ensemble, but I was the rollabola man.
Okay.
The fire bearer in Pippin.
Wow.
So yeah, it was cool. It was the most one of those jobs that really changed me also as a person, because I had to, when I got on Broadway and I realized how good everyone was, even at the level that I was training, I was good, but I was like, ooh, this is the big leagues.
Totally.
Like, I'm good.
This is the pinnacle of
This is the
what
pinnacle,
we do, yeah.
And everyone's like a triple threat or a quadruple threat.
Yeah.
And everyone just got it, and I was humbled immediately. And then the whole time I was doing it, and it was crazy because I couldn't appreciate the experience because I was like, oh my, I'm so far behind. I don't want to disrespect the Broadway stage. So the whole time, every free moment, I was trying to get better until I reached a point where I was good. But you don't realize that until you're just there.
And then the journey's over, so to speak, and you're like, I didn't even really appreciate the ride, I guess.
Yeah.
Crazy. I think you got to do Pippin in Japan as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where else have you had the chance to work, or like where else has work taken you, I guess?
As far as travel for work, I teach workshops.
Okay.
So teaching workshops, I've taught workshops in a lot of different places.
Okay.
But specifically for work, I've worked in Amsterdam, Japan, Canada, and then all like 40 of the 50 states.
Wow, crazy. And as far as like, I guess the skill sets that you're teaching in these workshops are concerned, are these skills that people are able to get fundamentals within a short period, like a day? Or like, I guess for someone that's interested in trying to get good at like hand balancing, what's a realistic timeline or expectation they should set for themselves to get good at it?
I mean, the main thing is to not set an expectation.
Okay.
Because that's what destroys the training process.
Totally,
and destroys the journey. But what I do is I broke everything down to create tools for someone like me to develop hand balancing.
Okay.
The biggest problem is that people who learn hand balancing learn from hand balancers who are 5'5" and are ex-gymnasts and are trained, which is really good if you come from that world. But if you're 6'7" and you have no athletic background and you learn that way, you will injure yourself.
Yeah.
Or if you're overweight or something like that. So I broke it down, and I studied both a Chinese system and a Russian system, and I created a hybrid fusion of the two.
Okay.
And then I incorporated meditation with it and my knowledge of like yoga and some Tai Chi stuff that I have, and I kind of created my own system that I broke down, and that's what I teach. So what usually, if you take like a crash course, you won't be a hand balancer, but you'll have tools, and you'll have an entire system of like Monday I do this, Tuesday I do this, Wednesday I do this, and if you follow the system, it's like paint by numbers or connect the dots.
Okay.
You will get good.
Okay.
If you are consistent. But if you're like, well, it's been 1 month and I'm not doing a one arm, you will destroy the whole training process and the journey. Totally. The main thing is to be okay that it's a journey and understand that you're embarking on a quest or a long journey, but also being humble with yourself and being gentle with yourself to have fun with the journey and be like, hey, I'm improving it. If I'm doing the steps, if I'm doing the work, I will always get better.
Wow. And so obviously you've alluded to how like in some of those early days you're training 3 to 10 hours a day. How many days and hours a week are you training now? And are you training to learn new skills or just maintenance at this point?
Now I'm doing about 3 hours a day, but I got really burnt out after doing Vader.
Yeah, totally.
Because I was going 10 hours a day, and the fatigue hit me right when we finished filming, and I was like wrecked for like 3 weeks where I could barely get out of bed and just do anything. I was just so tired. Because I was training sword 3 hours a day. I was here grinding sword. I was doing a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm getting back into the groove. I'm training about 3 hours a day.
Okay.
I'm mostly focusing on meditation. There's like a whole system that I developed specifically where I studied all the ancient disciplines and the esoteric disciplines, and I realized that they were true. And that was the crazy thing. I even trained Tai Chi with your mom.
No way. Wild. And so I guess meditation-wise, like, is that something that you do as part of your daily routine now, or is it something you just utilize for certain instances in your life?
I use meditation every day, every free moment. I'm meditating like 8 hours a day.
Okay.
But what I found is that I've developed a whole system that kind of stripped away most of the metaphysical stuff, and it's all mind-body connection.
Okay.
So it's not any philosophy or anything. Basically, it's learning how to relax your muscles, and we all have we have compensation patterns that run through our body, right? So you have a web of tension that you've developed through training, through trauma, through injury, through genetics, and basically these muscles subconsciously are flexing.
Okay.
That's it. So you have flexed muscles, and what Tai Chi and yoga teach is that flexed muscle is a parasite. It takes energy to flex a muscle.
Yeah, totally.
It takes nutrients, it takes oxygen, it takes a vital life energy.
Yeah.
So your vital energy, your life energy, is going to your heart, to your organs, to whatever's the most important thing, and then a small portion of that is going to these muscles that are flexed 24/7 for no reason, because of trauma.
Yeah.
And subconsciously, your brain is sending a signal for them to engage.
Okay.
So if you're subconsciously flexing a muscle with practice, you could consciously unflex a muscle. it actually takes less work.
Yeah.
And that's the whole journey of Tai Chi, is learning how to unflex these muscles to relax, essentially. But if I tell you to relax, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And there's no real way to learn how to relax outside of being like, relax. Come on, you're too tense, relax. And you're like, I'm trying, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, totally.
So this is a system of learning how to turn off, I call it deactivation, turning off the compensation patterns with practice. So when I figured this out, and it was really training with your mom and training all these other meditation practices, I incorporated that in my training, and then I started having breakthroughs, major breakthroughs in training. I had plateaued for a couple of years where I wasn't getting better no matter how much I was pushing. I was just kind of maintaining, and I was also balancing injuries. And then after that, I started recovering my injuries, and I started having major breakthroughs in everything, in handstands and martial arts and everything. And then from there, I kind of honed in and tried to figure out what was happening, and then I created my whole system behind it. Wow. But in theory, if you had zero compensation patterns whatsoever, right? You had nothing holding you back, you would be a god. You would literally run like as fast as a car, and you jump on top of buildings and stuff like that. Because when you have a compensation pattern, even though when I'm moving this, I have muscles in opposition that are engaged that are resisting it. So we're essentially wearing ankle weights or resistance bands 24/7 in all of our movement. You're trying to do something, and there's muscles that are pulling away. But when it's pulling away, it's actually working 4 times more against you.
Yeah.
So if everything was working together, it would be 100% efficiency, right? Now, if something's pulling away, not only is it pulling against it, but it's also taking away. If it was working towards it, it would enhance it. So it's taking away more than it actually normally would. So if everything was working together, anything that you do would happen instantaneously with no resistance.
Crazy.
So your punch would be your maximum speed, maximum effort instantly. And then you start like studying stories about the Shaolin monks or the Taoist masters or the yogis, and then you're like, wait, if you understand body mechanics and the fact that if all like the pulley system is one thing to look at it. A pulley, like most of our joints, are should track wrist, elbow, shoulder. Yeah. Right? And that's the way you lift, that's the way you squat, is you want everything in alignment. Because it has to do with the pulley system, and a pulley, 90 degrees is the most efficient position. Yeah, totally. Right? Now, if there's a pulley and the rope is coming at an angle, the rope will fray. Yeah. And the same thing with our joints is if there's resistance, the joints will fray. But it'll create damage, like carpal tunnel, tendonitis. All this wear and tear is because when you're shifting gears, it's grinding through the gear versus shifting perfectly. And the people whose joints are aligned better are the people we call prodigies. So I studied prodigies, and I realized that the kids who got it at a young age, if you look at their mechanics, they all have good mechanics, good body mechanics.
Is that something they're born with, or
genetically it's something you're born with, but also it's something that you could train to improve. So if someone is born with good mechanics, they have a higher maximum potential, but it doesn't mean that they'll reach it. They still have to work.
They have to put the work in.
Yeah, to put in the work. Okay. And someone could have worse genetics, but they could train and they could reach it. They could even surpass it if they meet their potential.
Is there anyone that you think has met this close to 100%
I'm trying
efficiency?
to do this. This is my goal. This is my goal. This is my life quest. Is to prove that Tai Chi is real. And that yoga is real. So this is what I do on my free time, and I'm trying to publish a book about it. And I'm trying to prove it medically with a sports doctor. So this is my own like passion project that I've been working on. That's how I fixed my knee.
No way.
Was correcting them, because the reason my knee was an issue was because I was born with a birth defect. So I have a twist in my spine, and all my joints are slightly misaligned. Making me really, really prone to dislocations. So I've dislocated like 10 joints.
No way.
Yeah, and basically when I dislocated my knee, the consensus was that I wasn't going to be able to ever run again or do martial arts or do acrobatics or anything. And I needed surgery for my knee, but it wouldn't fix the problem because it was really my hip. My hip was compensating, hip displacement. But it wasn't my hip, it was my spine. So everything was misaligned, everything was shifted. And if I put a plate here, then my ankle will go next, or my hip will go next, or my shoulder or my back or something. And it's just going to be a chain reaction because that's what my body was. And there was no way to fix it. But then also those people don't study yoga or Tai Chi. Because those people in Tai Chi, you learn that you could fix this. But it's a life journey.
Wow, that's wild. And so have you been able to avoid other injuries ever since you stumbled upon this?
Significantly. The other thing is because I'm good at it, I could recover pulled muscles in hours.
No way.
Instead of weeks,
How is that possible?
Because a pulled muscle, when you pull a muscle, what happens is you create spasms to protect the pulled muscle.
Yes.
So even if the muscle is healed or is recovered, the spasms are preventing you from doing it, so you don't re-pull it.
Yes.
And also, it's really deep inside the muscle, so you can't access it. It's not something you could easily stretch or massage out. If it was surface level, you could do it, but it's really deep in. So what I do is, because I'm good at relaxing muscles, I will activate the muscle till the spasms hit at a 1, and then I'll tell the muscles to relax. And I'll gradually go through it. It's not easy. It takes like 8 hours of doing this. You know, I'm just staring at it, relaxing the muscles millimeter by millimeter.
Wow.
But when you get to the center, you get to the actual muscle that's engaged. And what happens is it tenses up to protect itself. And if you get it to untense, then it won't pull itself anymore.
Okay, it makes sense.
So
it's just your body's natural defense mechanism to guard itself.
Yeah, but we don't always turn it off. So we're just waiting for it to naturally turn off, which could take 6 weeks.
Or never.
Yeah. You have the people who re-pull the same muscle over and over again. So what I do is when I get to the center and I turn it off, then it's over. Crazy. So I had an audition for Cirque du Soleil, and I pulled the muscle here the night before, training for it. And I was like, oh, this is such a big audition, but I can't walk. And at the time, I had recovered a minor injury also through meditation.
Okay.
So I spent like 8 hours staring at my hip, and then I was able to recover enough to do the audition the next day. And once I figured that out, then I tried to figure out what was happening and everything else, and created a system.
Okay.
But the thing is, anyone could do it. It just takes, you have to have the focus of doing something for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And that's what meditation is. It's like hyper awareness, hyper focus on one point.
Most people just don't take the time to try.
Yeah, the ADD kicks in. You have to like train it.
Yeah, 100%. And so I know one thing that we talked about off camera that I'd love to venture into, if you're cool with it, is at one point you were suffering from post-concussion syndrome and stuff. Yeah. Well, what happened that caused that, and what was the aftermath of it?
So I've had 6 concussions. Yeah, and they were like randomly throughout life. I had a really bad concussion when I was like 5 or 6.
Okay.
I cracked my head open, bleeding.
Oh, wow.
And then I had a couple random, like fell off a roof. I was in a car accident, fighting. And I had concussions, and gradually I started noticing that my memory was getting worse. It affects your mood a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it affects how your light perception.
Yep.
And then I had to get real bad concussion in Pippin. I got knocked out in the show.
On stage?
On stage, yeah.
No way.
We're doing something called a tree fall, a tension fall, where the actor is standing on my shoulders. We both fall, and we do a synchro forward roll.
Yes, the roll. Yeah. I see that double and triple stacks of those.
Yeah. So we were doing it, and the actor who was on my shoulders, we had done the show for like 16 days or 17 days without a break. And instead of rolling off 2 feet, he kicked his back leg like a handstand.
Swung out.
To do a roll. And I'm rolling behind him. So I'm rolling into his
head.
foot, and he kicked me in the head. And I just like fell over.
No way.
And then my friend picked me up and put me in. The good thing was we're just doing cues.
Okay.
And I wake up out of a dream, and I don't know how I got there. And I'm sitting on stage in front of 3,000 people.
No way.
And I'm like, okay, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I woke
Holy
up.
Crap.
Clearly, I'm performing.
Yeah.
I recognize some of the people on stage. Don't know why I'm there. Don't know how I got there. I'm like, okay, everyone's looking this way, so I guess I'm gonna look this way. Okay, everyone's looking this way. I'm like so confused, so lost. The good thing is that I'm just doing cues. I'm just supporting what's on stage. So you're just kind of activated and watching what's happening, which is perfect because I've never seen what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm just like dumbfounded. Then everyone leaves the stage, so I'm like, okay. And then I just wander off stage and I sit down. And I was supposed to strike stuff. I just left it on stage. And I sat down in the place. I find my name. I sit down. I'm just like sitting there, trying to figure out how I got there.
Yes.
And my dance captain runs up, and I'm supposed to do a costume change and then do like an acro dance number with a girl in like 2 minutes. And I'm just sitting there in a poncho dressed as a farmer. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, and he runs up. He's like, "Why aren't you there?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You're supposed to be there." I was like, "Really? Why?" He's like,
no.
And I was like, "Is that where I juggle fire?" And he's like, "Oh, something's wrong." So he ran backstage to the girl, said, "Something's wrong, Dmitrious. I'm filling in. We're gonna improv it." Ran back, and he made it up, and they improv the whole number. And it's like one of those beautiful theater, the show must go on moments where everyone stepped up, and no one noticed in the audience. Yeah. But then I was just backstage, and I didn't know what was happening. And they took me to the hospital, and they scanned my brain, and I had full amnesia of everything. I didn't know how I got there.
No way.
And this lasted for like about a week. But not only that, I lost my depth perception.
Okay.
So I couldn't see. Everything was like a TV screen. So if I was standing here, that wall, this camera, this would all look like it's in the same place.
It's flat, like 2D.
It's flat, yeah. So they tried to pressure me after like 3 days, tried to pressure me to go back in the show because they needed me. And the crazy thing is we're testing what I could do, and I could do everything because of muscle memory.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see depth, and I couldn't really see the lights were affecting my eyes, and I had to be like, guys, this isn't safe.
Yeah.
So they sent me back to LA to work with the Concussion Institute. And then we did a bunch of brain tests and a bunch of stuff, and then we got released about 2 months later. And then when I went back to the show, I realized I didn't remember any of the inside jokes with anybody in the cast.
Wow.
And in fact, I didn't remember the entire year before.
What happened?
Of what happened, the entire year of performing before that.
Crazy.
And then not only that, I didn't remember parts of my childhood, like huge moments of my childhood. So I was starting to understand that I had memory loss. And then the depression that comes with it is because I stopped feeling time. It's a weird thing to say, but our perception of time is based on our memory.
Okay.
So because I could only remember 2 weeks, my time, linear time, was 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then after that, my memory I still would remember some stuff, but it'd be stored in a different region of my brain, which was like 10 years ago, 3 weeks ago, 15 years ago, all the same place. So I'd be like, yeah, Travis, remember last week when we were talking about this and this and this? And you're like, that was 10 years ago. I'd be like, oh. And I would remember, but I wouldn't remember, but I wouldn't know when it happened.
No way.
So then my entire time perception was distorted completely. I didn't know when things happened. I didn't know if something was a dream or if it actually happened. Because if I had a dream and it was vivid enough, it would be stored in that same region.
Yeah, totally.
So then I was dating a girl in New York, and I was on tour, and I got back together to see her, and I realized that I was on page 1, and she was on like chapter 47.
No way.
And I was like, I don't know anything. I don't know our inside jokes. I don't know what our activities are. I don't know anything. I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
And I went through this, and I went through a really severe depression, and this was supposed to be forever. So I didn't know. I couldn't remember lines anymore. I didn't know how I could function.
Crazy.
I relied on my brother a lot, who would tell me who people are, how I knew them, how I met them. And an interesting thing was, because I couldn't rely on memory, I started relying on intuition and on energy. I started feeling how people would make me feel.
Okay.
So if someone made me feel comfortable, I'm like, okay, this is my friend.
Yeah.
If someone made me feel uncomfortable, I said, no, this is not my friend.
Wow.
And that was it. And then I started feeling even further, like with my intuition, I could tell when people are lying or trying to have ill intentions towards me. It's kind of like what the Taoists teach. Like when your mind is blank, you could sense energy, and that's what happened. I started sensing energy, but it was because my mind was blank because everything was erased.
Crazy.
And this happened for years. And then I did a study, like an experimental program at USC with post-concussion syndrome recovery.
Wow.
And they did some brain scans, and there was this theory that if you constantly learn and rewire your brain over and over and over again, what will happen is your brain is so plastic that it will always try to it will recalibrate. It will always try to find a more efficient calibration when you sleep. And basically the damage was to the hippocampus, so it's like there's a destination, and there's a highway, and there's a landslide.
Yeah.
And the information is still there, it's just the landslide is blocking it. The neural pathways are damaged. But if you constantly rewire, eventually I could find a path that leads to the memories.
Crazy.
They're there, I just have to find them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went on this whole journey for like years of just constantly learning, relearning, and that's also where my circus skills came from.
No.
Because at that time, muscle memory was the only thing I had. I couldn't remember anything that I learned. Everything that I learned, I forgot.
Wow.
And I studied everything that I could think of. And then afterwards, it didn't matter what I studied because I wouldn't retain it.
Yeah.
So I just studied everything that was interesting to me.
Okay.
Yeah, so I studied meditation and a bunch of different things. And over time, using psychedelics, using meditation, relearning, training my offhand, doing all these things, eventually, after like 2 years, my memory started coming back.
Crazy.
And gradually my brain started healing.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
This is crazy. Do you think it was just, I mean, obviously you've had 6 concussions in your life, but this one last one on stage just really, I guess, ignited everything?
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
The effects afterwards were nuts. It was because it affects everything. Your brain affects everything.
Yeah, totally.
It affects your mood. It affects how you show up every day.
Mm-hmm.
It affects your confidence.
Yeah.
And there's this thing where you start doubting yourself when you don't know what is real and what isn't real. You don't know if you imagined something, if it was a dream, if it actually happened. Something could have happened a month ago, and you don't know if that was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 1 month ago.
And were you able to regain a lot of these early memories that you spoke about that, like parts of your childhood that you forgot? Were you able to, I guess, regain those again?
Some of them have come back, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, a lot of my memories have come back. It's still fragmented. It's really interesting because I'll have something like a water bottle, like a trigger, and I'll look at it, and suddenly I'll remember 6 memories that have a white water bottle.
Wow.
From different times. And gradually it's like this detective story where my brain is slowly healing, and I'm just getting downloads of memories and information. So I won't know something, and then I suddenly know a 2-year span.
Yeah, it just
happens instantly.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Do you still suffer any effects, I guess, from post-concussion?
I still have memory loss.
Okay.
So now my memory lasts about 6 months.
Okay.
Because I did so many different like brain like tricks and things to remember.
Yeah.
I've gotten better at learning to pay attention. I take notes, take a lot of notes when I learn things.
Okay.
And gradually my memory has improved. My short-term memory has improved significantly.
Okay.
So in the short term, I can remember very vivid details, but not everything gets translated to long term.
Crazy.
So things will start fading over time and it gets a little fragmented. But I've already adapted to it, and now I have a really honed intuition, and I'm so used to it that everything is a bonus. Everything's a blessing.
Yeah.
6 months is better than 2 weeks.
Yeah, 100%. Crazy. And so obviously as you're continuing to deal and work on things like this and meditation and with how much you train, do you foresee that you'll be able to keep up your training regimen for an extended period of time? Like, is there, I guess, in your mind, do you think there'll be a point where you won't be able to do these things? Or do you think you'll be able to, if you achieve that 100% efficiency, be able to do them, I guess, until death?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Crazy.
Is that basically what I realize is that what training really is it's a calibration, right? So stretching and physical training are two sides of the same coin. So if you're doing your punches, right, with your chambers, the reason you're doing this chamber outside of the martial arts reason is this is actually the full range of motion of a shoulder.
Yeah.
This is the full rotation. So over time, what you're doing is you're carving this groove, this pattern into your muscle memory. So what muscle memory is you have all this web of tension and you have this compensation pattern, and by doing repetitive motion, you're carving a channel into it.
Makes sense.
And then you keep that channel because you've carved it through your tension patterns.
So many times, yeah.
Right? But if these tension patterns were never there, if you had zero compensations to begin with, your first punch would be a perfect punch. There's nothing to stop you from having a perfect punch.
Crazy.
And you have those kids where you teach a kid and you're like, wow, this kid's got it.
Yeah.
His everything is there.
It's instantly working, yeah.
Because there's no restriction, there's no compensation. So the less compensation you have, the more efficient it is. And with me, what's been happening is my body's been healing where I started recovering all my old injuries. So now it's mostly, as I've been shaking the fatigue, I'm still training at the same level. I'm 34, I'm still training at the same level. In fact, I'm now way more flexible than I was when I was younger, way wiser than I was. So I still haven't plateaued.
Crazy.
Yeah, I'm still improving.
And so obviously I know that is one thing about you as well, is like the flexibility is something that's so rare. I've read some posts how you talk about the key to flexibility and the reasons behind it being so important. How many days a week are you stretching? Do you stretch every day?
I stretch every day. I stretch every day.
Same
but
as
I'm trying to achieve something that's impossible.
Which is
Perfect symmetry, the
efficiency.
100%. Yeah.
Wow.
It's what yoga and Tai Chi are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Is perfect symmetry.
Okay.
And you do it by training both sides equally.
Wow.
Right. And the less restriction you have, the easier everything is. So for instance, if you could only lift your leg 90 degrees, if I'm trying to kick someone here, when I hit 90 degrees, the brakes of my compensation, my lack of flexibility will kick in. So when my leg gets here, it has less power than what it had here.
Totally.
Right? And when you hit your maximum range, it has zero power.
Crazy.
Right? If you kick something at your maximum range, it has already slowed down to the point where it stops because it can't go anymore. Now, if my maximum range is here and I'm kicking here, I'm still accelerating.
Okay.
Which means you have more power.
Yeah, totally. Damn, I'm like super interested now in this like 100% efficiency type thing.
Like I said, it's pretty crazy if you tell people.
Yeah.
And even in sports science and things like that, because they think more from a Western mindset,
of course, yeah.
It's still crazy because they're looking at the small, minute details. But if you just think about the big picture of the compensation through our body and the fact that it takes energy to do it.
Yeah.
It takes energy to flex these muscles. And if someone could instantly unflex all their muscles, just release all the trauma, this is what they called enlightenment in the ancient disciplines. That's Satori. It's the Zen enlightenment. Instant enlightenment is the moment that they drop all of their attachments, which is their trauma, their perception, everything else, their ego. Even your ego, it's stored through your body as tension.
Yeah.
Whenever you have trauma, your body stores like a hard drive through tension. And if there's zero tension, there's zero trauma, there's zero ego, there's zero resistance. Enlightenment.
Crazy.
Theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically. But it is crazy. Like growing up in my household, I see my dad who is pretty broken from all of his injuries over the years, and I see my mom who is still on this journey of improving every day, and she has insane levels of flexibility. I don't know if you saw the Phoenix stretch that she was able to achieve. Like she does like a yearly goal for herself, and one of her goals, I think it was last year, was to stand like this with her leg locked standing and touch her chin to her foot.
Oh, wow.
And it's called the Phoenix stretch. And
Wow.
supposedly in martial
amazing.
arts, they say like when you do it, it's almost like your body's reborn. You've hit this level of like, I guess, elasticity or flexibility in your back and your hamstrings and everything. And she was able to do it. And I'm like, damn, I bet she feels so good comparative to other friends her age because of the level of flexibility and elasticity that her body is at, that I'm like, damn, I need to not wait too long to get on this journey, you know?
Because Tai Chi is real.
Yeah.
That's the thing, it's real.
Yeah.
But the problem was at the time that they developed it, 5,000 years ago, whatever, 2,000 years ago, whatever they didn't understand medically or scientifically was magic.
Yes.
And with anything, you know, there's a solar eclipse. We don't understand solar eclipse.
magic.
We better sacrifice some people.
Totally.
Because the gods are angry at us.
Yes,
Whatever
yes.
we don't understand, we create it. It's God, it's magic, it's something sorcery, it's whatever we don't understand.
Yes.
And the moment we understand it, sometimes people get mad because we now understand it and they think that it takes the magic away. But the magic is still real.
Of course.
Because they're explaining a phenomenon, and what they couldn't understand, it became magic.
Wow.
But the less resistance you have, the faster your body heals.
Okay.
The less tension you have, the less energy it takes. The more elasticity, the less injury there is.
Yes.
Because most injuries are because of lack of range of motion.
Yep,
You know,
yep.
if you're going through a knee, if your knee doesn't go there, something will happen. If it goes there, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
And you see people who have better mechanics. What's his name? What's that one kid who's jumping off like 10-foot ledges and throwing punch fronts?
Dom Tomato? Or
No, not Dom. He trains here as well.
Oh, Tanner Witt.
Yes. So if you look at Tanner's mechanics, he's got really good knee mechanics.
Okay.
That's why he could take the impact.
Ah.
Is the mechanics, is the way his joints track and how efficient he is at dispersing energy.
Okay.
If someone has worse mechanics, they will blow out their knees.
Makes sense.
But what Tanner could do is physically possible for any human if they were to achieve that level of body mechanics, that level of lack of resistance and the strength and allowing the joint to track properly.
Yeah.
The problem is that no one has that.
Yeah. Naturally.
Yeah. And a lot of these disciplines, these enlightenment disciplines, what they're trying to achieve is perfect symmetry, perfect elasticity, perfect range of motion.
Yeah.
If all of your joints tracked properly, you would never get injured.
Crazy.
Ever.
Makes sense.
Unless you got hit by like a car or something.
Yeah,
like that, you know?
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. And so along the lines of like, I guess this physical and mental enlightenment that you're working on right now, well, what's like the current status of your life? Like, what are your current like goals and focuses and stuff as far as your career?
That's mostly it.
It is, right?
That's mostly
that's
it.
what I
That's
was
everything.
concerned about.
That's everything. So I usually I work enough so I have money and resources to focus on my training.
Makes sense.
To understand. The main thing was my knee wasn't supposed to be recoverable. It's still not at 100% where I'm not tumbling.
Yeah.
Because I used to be like an acrobat, like tumbler.
Yeah.
But I'm getting really close.
Okay.
And also I'm having major breakthroughs in my martial arts and everything. And for me, I'm trying to be an action actor. So what I'm doing is with my injuries, I have to be very wise of how I train with other people.
Totally.
Because certain things, basic things, would hurt my body.
Yeah.
So I'd be very careful. So in the meantime, I worked mostly on body mechanics, on lines, on the things that I could train safely. But I'm getting to the point where I could just throw the chains off and just go.
Okay.
And when I get there, then it won't matter. Like everything has been like charging, like a loading bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Building up my chi, and when I'm ready, then I'm just gonna explode.
Hit the combo breaker button. Yeah.
So that's what I'm training for specifically. And you'll know when it happens. You'll know.
Okay.
Because you'll see me.
Are there any skill sets that you're still chasing, or?
Oh, tricking.
Oh, really?
Oh, I love tricking.
Okay.
I love watching tricking so much.
Crazy.
But I can't do it because of my knee, because the 1 foot
course.
landings and things like that.
Of
and
course,
I've dislocated it 4 times, and it's still not tracking properly.
Okay.
Like I've gotten tracking it really well, but there's still a moment that deviates, and if I land in that one specific moment, it'll dislocate.
Yeah.
And when I could clean that tracking up completely, then I could start tricking.
Okay.
So I'm literally watching. You'll see. I don't step on the sprung floor because I do stupid stuff when I'm on the sprung floor.
So
and because
avoiding.
my body knows how to do it, and my mind knows how to do it, but I just shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And when I'm around people who are hype, I get hype, and then I hurt myself.
So don't step on the floor.
So I train only on the puzzle mats.
I noticed that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't step on the floor because and in the puzzle mats I just grind. Everyone there is grinding.
Yes, they are.
You know, and that's what I'm doing. I just grind and I grind and I grind.
Crazy.
Looking at the trickers, being like, one day I'm gonna be out there and you're gonna know.
That's crazy.
But yeah, I got back into breaking again.
Okay, no
So
way.
I'm dancing.
Okay.
That's been a big one because it's the first thing that I learned to do, but also the first thing that doesn't generate money.
Yeah.
And you know, with stunts and with everything else, when money gets involved, it takes some of the fun out of it.
Of course.
You know?
Instantaneously.
Yeah. So now that I'm breaking again, it feels good to just do it because I love to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. And so with that being said, I know you kind of made a conscious decision to not pursue stunts. Is that from a standpoint of protecting your body and its physical health and well-being, or is it just so that you have more free time to pursue these?
It was because of my knee injury.
Okay.
It was because first I had my concussion and I had my knee injury about 6 months later.
Okay, so
they both happened at the same time. And I had to take a big step away, but because my recovery was so rough with my knee and I had lost everything. I had trained for 10 years and I couldn't do martial arts, I couldn't do rollabola, I couldn't do partner acrobatics, couldn't tumble. And I fell in such a deep depression. And you know, you've had these injuries too. Where like your whole identity is tied to your movement. And when you take that away, who are you without it?
Totally.
You know? So when I lost everything, then I was like, okay, I'm good now. If someone said, hey, I'll give you $10,000, but you're going to dislocate your knee. Would you? If someone said, hey, I'm going to give you $10,000, but you'll blow out your knee.
Nope.
Yeah, you're going to be like, no, not worth it. Yeah. And when I was really recovering, I could barely walk, I would have paid $1 million to get better.
Of course.
You know, because it was supposed to be impossible. This was the end of my career.
Yeah.
So now that I'm there, you get a stunt job and you're like, okay, great, I'll make $30,000, right? Would I trade $30,000 to blow out my knee?
At what cost? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm like, no, it's not worth it. You know, and that also has allowed me to focus more on acting.
Totally.
Because I put a wall there, and that stopped being an avenue of income. I focused more on self-improvement, understanding myself at a deeper level, so I can understand characters at a deeper level. Okay. And that has allowed me to grow. You know, so I have mad respect for stunts.
Yeah.
Mad respect for stunts because I understand the journey.
Totally.
And I also understand that even me, I need a stunt double.
Yeah, of course.
You know? And that's the thing is that it's such a valuable industry and people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
But also I know that I don't want to trade anything anymore ever again for another concussion or for another severe injury.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Makes sense, man. No, it's cool too that you're at that point where you are secure enough and know that it's not worth chasing the bag, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, for lack of a better term. So
but that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, and there's people who do it their entire lives and they could get away with never having an injury.
It's true.
And there's people who get wrecked.
Yes. Yeah. I have some best friends that have never been injured, and I've been like rushed to the ER multiple times on set and had surgeries, multiple surgeries, and it's like, wow, it's crazy. Some journeys are a little bit different. So.
But I do miss the adrenaline of stunts.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing there of knowing yourself completely when you're doing something that someone else would deem sketchy, and you're like, I know my body, I got this.
I can pull this off.
Yeah, I can pull this off.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more fortifying than that.
100%.
You know, so I haven't found that yet in regular life, but also I haven't been chasing adrenaline as I've been meditating and trying to heal myself.
Totally.
You know, but there is a moment I think where I'll go back to doing the crazy stuff.
Crazy. All right. Well, this is a question I ask everyone. Where do you personally see yourself 5 years from now, and where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Levitating.
I have no idea. I've reached this point now where I've thrown away all attachments.
Okay.
You know, so now I'm on the journey, and I've only reached here maybe like 6 months ago.
Okay.
Where like Darth Vader was the pinnacle of suit acting.
Yeah.
You know, and Cirque du Soleil is the pinnacle of circus, and Broadway is the pinnacle of theater.
Totally.
And when you start hitting multiple pinnacles, you realize that each of these individual ones, at a certain point, I thought if I get this, oh man, I'm gonna be balling. Everything's gonna be there, right? And when you hit multiple goals, like if you catch the car that you're chasing, it's one of the worst things that could ever happen.
Yes, they say, because then you've achieved it.
You've achieved it, and then you're like, now what?
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be everything, and then you realize that the next car is just another car, right? So I'm at that point now where I'm like, rather than chasing cars, I'm trying to figure out more about myself and here, what I want, how I want to contribute to humanity, to the world. You know, how can I change the world to be a better place? So that's, for me, I truly believe that the meditation thing, once I could prove it scientifically, and it takes one person to do it. It always takes one crazy person.
Yeah.
For everything.
Totally.
There's always that one crazy person when everyone else is doing something, they're like, nah, I'm going to do something different. But that's the person who changes everything. That's the Nikola Tesla.
Yep.
That's the Elon Musk. You know, it's the one crazy person who thinks differently than everyone else. So for me, because I know I've healed so much in my body through the meditation, I know that there's a bridge between the Eastern mind and the Western mind. And I know that all this ancient text that people have thrown away because it's something old and they didn't understand, was like revolutionary. But it's not the way that they described it.
Okay.
They described it the way they understood.
Okay.
And the way I'm describing it is the way we understand medically and through body mechanics and sports science now. And 100 years from now it might be described differently.
Yeah, true.
As our mind evolves and we start analyzing things differently. But I think that if I publish it, it could unify. One, it transcends religion because it's just body mechanics, mind-body connection.
Yeah.
And I grew up conservative Christian in like this Slavic Christian bubble. And I was taught that meditation is the devil and spirits will enter your body and all this crazy stuff. And when I started meditating and telling people, they were like, oh, you're playing with demons. And then I realized that their mind would never expand past that because they had no idea what it was.
Totally.
But someone told them that it was bad, and somehow that conflicts with their religion. And if you find a place where people could heal themselves without doctors, through meditation, through the mind-body connection, could understand why I'm slowing my aging down. That's the crazy thing. I'm like now aging slower than I was when I was younger because I'm holding less tension.
Totally.
And in theory, there reaches a point where you stop. That's what Tai Chi teaches. That's what yoga teaches. And it sounds crazy, but in our current expansive medicine, now it's not so crazy because the only reason we age is because the telomeres get shorter.
Okay.
Because you're making a copy of your DNA, of a copy, of a copy, of a copy, and you're constantly making Xeroxes until the image gets really blurry. Because the copy isn't a perfect copy. It's a slightly worse copy. But if the copy was perfect, there would be zero aging. It only ages because it's like a disease. It's not really it doesn't have to happen.
Crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely, and when I say it out loud, it sounds crazy. But that's why someone has to prove it.
Yeah, 100%. Let's go.
Yeah.
JAMCast in 5 years.
We'll see where I'm at.
Follow up on it, bro. That'd be awesome. Dude, more than anything, man, thanks. I really appreciate you taking the time to come through with your busy schedule. And more than anything, I also appreciate, like I said, your support of Jam and just being like a fixture here. Like there's people that I guess are, they bring like an energy into the gym. People always like thank me for having Jam. I'm like, Jam's just literally 4 walls. Like the gym is nothing without the people that walk through the front door and contribute to the energy that's within this place and the free flow of knowledge within it. And, you know, just being a familiar face to people that walk in the building and stuff. So I really appreciate seeing you here all the time, man. And like I said, hopefully let's make this not the last one. Let's keep up and over the years see like if you're able to achieve this goal of 100% efficiency. I'm super curious to see what happens. Yeah,
we'll see. But like I said, thank you for Jam because Jam is my temple.
Dude, I appreciate it.
I train by myself a lot and I travel a lot and train at different gyms and different studios. And really what makes a good studio or a bad studio is the energy.
The energy is huge.
The people who show up.
Yes.
If you see if everyone's lazy in the gym, it's going to be a lazy gym.
Yes.
And Jam doesn't have that.
Yes.
Jam has that let's go energy.
Or like I said, it's the people that walk through the door, man. We're so blessed every time. And I really appreciate you being a fixture of the gym and super stoked to see where this journey continues to take you. Congratulations on the recent success of Obi-Wan and looking forward to seeing like what the next stages are.
Thank you.
Hell yeah, bro. So before we get out of here, can you look in this camera and let people know where they can continue to follow you, stay up to date with your own personal journey, and shout out like anything else that you got going on so people can stay up to date?
Okay, you could follow me on social media at Dmit2K, and that's for Twitter and Instagram, or for my TikTok, which is Darth Dmitrious.
Hell yes. With that being said, guys, please be sure to hit that like button, comment, subscribe for brand new episodes each and every week. Join us every Monday for Jam Breakdowns and every Friday for brand new JAMcast, interviewing influential members of the moving community like Dmitrious Bistrevsky himself. Tried my best. So with that being said, guys, got to give one more very special shout out. Thanks for coming through, brother. I really appreciate it. Hell yes. And as always, coming through, I'm your host, Travis Wong. Thanks for joining us here on another JAMcast. Until next time, see you all soon. Peace.